Okay, I've started the recording, so.
Morning. Hey, Bart.
You're going.
I see that. Well, it's not quite print time. How's Abby today?
Don't be so ecstatic.
It's a rainy Monday too.
Yes, and you're in Tuesday.
There's no rain in the forecast.
All right, it's 8:30.
That's the thing about wearing.
I know,
smart stuff.
believe me.
I leave my phone in the truck.
Good morning, everybody. We'll call this meeting to order. And it is Monday, July 12th. Do we have a motion to acknowledge the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And that was for the 28th and 29th. And June 30th and July 1st. Meet with County Engineer. We are happy to welcome to the meeting Wade Hines, who's our new county engineer, who started July 1st, hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, welcome. And I know he's been doing a lot of training, getting out and about, and we're glad to have you here.
Good to be here. I'm paddling to get my head above water, but we have a contractor that got started up on the Pleasant View Road doing a scrub seal, which is
The east-west Pleasant Plain.
Pleasant Plain.
Yeah.
It's more of a holding pattern type of maintenance activity that should help hold everything together on that until we can get it programmed in for a little more aggressive rehabilitation. I've driven the road a few times. Structurally, it's in decent shape. It's just old. That's you don't have any real indications of complete base failure anywhere. The road crews have been doing a great job of fixing any potholes and spot issues, but from just a straight structural standpoint, the only issue with it is it's an old pavement. So this scrub seal will help seal it from moisture infiltration and hopefully give us a couple more years of life out of it. And I hope that's what Scott had intended it for. I don't know if we'll get a whole lot more out of that. I handed you guys some flyers from the truck shopping that the road crews have been doing. Billy has done a good job trying to find adequate vehicles for the belly dumps that he's picked up. He feels that he's found a couple. The mileage on them are about where you would hope they would be, and he's satisfied with the condition and all the features that the vehicles have. So he'll go ahead and purchase those. That keeps him under the budget that you guys gave him, or that the engineering department gave him, however that worked. So that will move forward if you guys approve.
So we're looking at two 2016 Volvo VNL 6410 T300 trucks. One's got a little over 500,000 miles, and the other one's got a little over 100,000 miles, which aren't bad. 16 semi tractor. So sounds good. Total price for both trucks, he's got rid of $1,000. So yeah, that is well within the budget that we were looking at for this, as well as with the belly dump being added later. It was going to be $250,000-$260,000.
Brings you in right at 200. Oh, so between the two belly dumps and that, With those, you won't, the anticipated mileage on something like that, on one of those, it's $1 million, $1.3 million. You won't get that many miles because of the nature of what we'll be doing, more navigating back in and maneuvering. I think, 5-10 years is probably not a bad projected life.
No, that's about what we thought it was going to be.
With good maintenance, they'll last quite a while for us.
Good.
We moved Thomas Imzinger. I can say his name. Easy for you to say. Into the assistant position. We've got him started on a couple of projects. He's going through rock tickets, consolidating everything for our spring and summer rock haul. Then we have a old GPS unit that was holding up a wall in the engineer's office. I've got him tasked with either updating or replacing that, at least looking into the cost of that. And then also, I've got him looking into AutoCAD Civil 3D for the office so that we can do more of our own in-house design work and subcontract out less of that. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to do a lot of it. I don't know how much Scott did in-house before, but that's something I would like to work towards improving on.
How was your time with Danny on Friday?
It was like he was burying me with a scoop shovel.
He met with the ISAC county engineer person Friday.
Service Bureau. There's a lot of information on their website. I've discovered that we have a road project on 32nd Street coming out of the town. That's under design by
French Reniker.
Should be out for January bid, so we're still in the preliminary stages. I need to coordinate. Darren taking a step to coordinate with the city to see if they want to tag team onto that project.
Well, we had been ready to tag team on with him, and we were going to have a joint letting and then have both projects done at the same time. I'm just trying to figure out what time they're looking at doing that. That letting should have been last May, and they should have already approved it by the city. So it may go yet this fall. I don't know. It may have a late start date next spring too, which would put us in the same time frame. If we were to get the same contractor again, that could lower the mobilization costs. The reason to tie them together previously was to try to get lower mobilization because they could just do the full stretch from Burlington all the way down to Libertyville Road. But plans change occasionally, unexpectedly this time, but hopefully that may be the case, that Norris, who I'm sure probably got the contract, will either be here this fall or next spring. And if they're here next spring, then maybe if we get let in January, then we could have everything done all at the same time by the same contractor. So that may end up saving us and the city both.
I don't know if we need to put Darren on engineering staff.
No.
He's been helping
I
out,
thank
sorting
him
through
for
some of
being
the
out and
paperwork.
helping.
Well,
He's
that's all
been
right.
filing out at the engineer office. last
Yeah, a
week.
lot of it was
Right. And you
But I did
did
find some things though for you that were real pertinent to what was going on right now around us. So I'm more than happy to help like that.
And that information I gave you is just information, so things that have been collected.
Give me something to read at home.
You have a lot of priorities before that.
All right. One of the other things that came up at the Farm Bureau meeting was nutmeg north from the Heartland facility. I've been over that a couple of times, once with Darren, and then I took Thomas back out there, and we had the opportunity to watch a spray rig just drive over it, and that road is exhibiting subgrade instability, which you shouldn't have had with that type of treatment. But I fear that if we don't do something prior to harvest, we may have an issue with it.
And there's a couple years ago, in between the underpass
Mhm.
and the four-way stop, or it's not four-way anymore, but the
Mhm.
200th, there was a frost boil. So it really, in the winter and spring, gets,
I've talked, I spoke with Jacob from Washington County
Mhm.
about it, since he's kind of the local expert on that process. And I need to get with him. He was more than willing to come down and take a look at the road to give me his input, since has a lot more experience than my zero. So I'll kind of keep you guys posted on what happens with that, or what his thoughts are. Hopefully by next week I'll have a little more knowledge and information for you.
and just for the board's sake, I told Dwayne this when we talked Friday, but this is just FYI, because you have, again, other priorities. But at the Farm Bureau meeting, the railroad crossings came up. And so every summer I call our local guy, Steve, and so I called him, and they said they're supposed to be on Quince putting in that concrete crossing that's similar as they did on Pine, but when that happens, he doesn't know when that's going to be. But he told me the same thing 2 years ago. So, and then the crossing at 205th and Redwood are in extremely bad shape. And he mentioned that DOT money in Henry County, there was a crossing that I think the DOT paid 60%, the county did 20%, and the railroad did 20%. So Henry County would know that. He did give me the name of an email when you get to that, or I may just send it to you so I don't lose it, but of who he worked with on that. So yeah, but that's just more for the sake of the board, but we do get complaints.
Mhm.
Full disclosure, it's in my neighborhood, but I'm not.
And on that
really
road
uses
trip
it.
we took the other day, we looked at a couple of those, and there are several of the westbound tracks that aren't done. Most of the eastbound ones that we went across have had the upgrade to the concrete, but I think a lot of the reason for that is all your eastbound trains are usually loaded down with coal. All your westbound trains are usually empty cars heading back in a longer stretch.
Well, he
So,
also said something about the track size is lighter, where we have problems with that, and so that's causing part of it. And I mean, I didn't follow that as closely, but
They
anyway,
may not have had
The weight or
upgraded to the continuous
Yeah.
welded rail.
probably.
anyway, that's just FYI. Oh, I saw an advertisement in the paper for the mechanic. Is that in now?
I think so.
It was in the paper Friday, I
Yeah,
think.
Mark.
So we need to get one posted out that year.
He's already taken
You
care
have
of
one
it.
Yep,
there?
he has.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Perfect.
Did it this morning.
All right, good.
Very efficient.
Excellent.
Good staff.
Because
Yeah, Mark is a top-notch guy.
Yeah.
well, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry so much for the first hard week. That, like you told me, you've had worse ones. So, all right.
Discuss and consider a resolution for wage rate and classification change for secondary road employee. And this is for Thomas M. Singer, and it's pay range 19, step A, base wage $27.88. And he is going to the engineer tech position. So That's the reason for this change. Okay, so I'll make a motion that we pass this. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Discuss and consider secondary road department fund transfer. This we do every year. And since it is the first of the fiscal year, that's why we're doing that now. And so it transfers $1,100,000 from rural basic fund to the secondary road fund. And transfers are to be made monthly and shall not exceed that total. So that's the reason for this. Do we have a motion for this? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Discuss and consider resolution to hire Robbie Donovan Smith as a correctional officer. Okay, Bart. Let's see.
No, if you have other priorities, you're welcome to go do them.
Somebody was putting file folders on my desk with stuff I need to look at.
Yeah, I think I do know who that was. So,
Thank you.
Thanks,
yep,
Dwayne.
thank you, Dwayne.
Okay, be it resolved of the Board of Supervisors of Jefferson County that the Jefferson County Sheriff is authorized to hire correctional officer Robbie Donovan Smith. And be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors that Robbie Donovan Smith is hired starting at $35,593. And this starts, when does this start? Am I missing it?
Yeah, I'm missing it as well. What date is his hire date? Last Wednesday.
How has he started then? When does he start?
Last Wednesday would have been.
They actually did one through his paperwork.
But when do we start?
Which is this week. Okay.
Before he starts work.
Well, so today, right?
All right, do we have a motion for this?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and consider incentives for employees of Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. Oh wait, there's another one on here, civil clerk, sorry. Let's do that one. Okay. This one is Jefferson County Sheriff desires to increase one of the civil clerk's salary for Ruth Dio. Okay, and that Ruth Dio's increase be from 47,282.71 to 53,019.20 effective July 1st. You want to tell us about it?
Yes.
Thank you.
So Ruth has been there approximately 6 years. I think she just got lost in the shuffle. She's making quite a bit less than another employee in doing the same job. So with the increase, she'll still be $1 an hour below the other one who's been there longer, but they're basically both doing the same job. It's kind of like where our starting wage, it never changed. And as over the years, the regular wage of the correctional
Right.
officer increased, the gap got wider and wider. Same thing's happening. So basically, they're getting further and further apart.
Right.
And it seems like a large increase, but it'll bring it more comparable to where they're at.
Right. Yeah, that's that same argument I've had for a long time, which is better a dollar increase or a percentage increase. And percentage increases always work out where there's going to be bigger disparities
Right.
between people as you go on down the road. So,
Because I think we had to increase the starting correctional wage by 4,000 to bring it closer to, it's still kind of a large gap
Yeah.
between when they get after a year and they get full pay, but bring it a little closer, and it might have to be looked at,
Yep.
another 5 years from now or something. I don't know, so.
Okay.
And you got the money in your budget. We're good.
That's all good.
We have a motion.
second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nope. All right, Art. Discuss and consider incentives for employees of Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. And you sent the three of us an email with us. And I told you last week, and I'll still tell you the same thing. I'm against it, not because, just because I feel like we gotta draw a line. I think, I understand why you requested it and review what I've heard from the public department heads and employees since this was done for public health 2 weeks ago. Department heads are being pressured by their employees to ask for increases. Why didn't you ask for an increase for me? Look at what public health got.
Mm-hmm.
You're
And
exactly right.
this
That
has
would be
happened in
different.
several departments, not just Bart's,
Right.
Correct.
okay? So it's my opinion employees get paid a fair wage and we have outstanding benefits here. And again, I'm not gonna support this, not because, I think your people do a great job, Bart. I just am philosophically opposed to this in general. I think there's other ways that the county can do something. If we ever get back to getting some, looking at our insurance project, which I hope we can, or whatever. It's just, I don't feel this is appropriate considering it's taxpayer dollars and it's not our personal checkbooks. That's just my opinion.
Can I say something? I'm not opposed to something like this, but I would like to, I want us to have the money in the bank from American Recovery Plan. Even think about it.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure whether this would have fallen under the American Recovery Act type of funding, but what went on with Chris and her department came from the CARES Act, and she documented many hours that they worked where they don't get paid overtime.
It was
to do
just her,
things,
she
and-
said her people,
Yeah.
that she was able to get her people.
So
time.
anyway, we got those arguments with it. And we also were in discussion for probably 3 months prior to any decision that we made on it. The other thing I would ask though is I do note the last line of your email here is that I know this was not your budget. This was a budget that was developed by Greg, but $163,000 was put back into the general fund that was unused money from last fiscal year. Now,
Which I rechecked the numbers, it was just under 160.
yeah, well, regardless, it's still a lot of money to be returned. And what line items were the ones that were the largest returns with, and how we can reapportion that for this next fiscal year's budget, because it'll be your first fiscal year budget that you will actually work on and turn in. Well, I guess this one is starting and doing, but you may end up having this much money again a year from now. And to continually have a return of that amount of money every year tells me that we're not sharpening our pencil enough when it comes to what our line items are. Because I would like to see what we've returned back into the general fund each year for the last 5 years through the sheriff's department. And if there is one outstanding line item, it seems like we're always giving that money back at the end of the year. Why isn't that line item reduced to make it so that we could actually lower the tax levy? Because the money that you return is money that didn't really need to be levied for, the way I look at it. You may have something that happens clear out of the blue one year that you're unaware of and you run into a problem with. But if you continually have, say, your building fund has $200,000 in it, and for 5 years in a row, you have never used anywhere close to that $200,000 and you've always given it back, can that be budgeted at $150,000? And in return, that means that it could be a lower levy rate that could be passed on to the taxpayer rather than leaving the levy rate the same and getting that money and then turning it back into the general fund.
Well, and I've talked to you about it before with these unexpected costs that might come up in a 12-month period. I'd rather make sure that, this year I did look at a lot of numbers these last 6 months, but I'd rather return it to that end fund balance. And I've told you this, if something comes up, then I know that I should be able to do a budget amendment or stuff that happens.
Right, and we had
Higher
it.
cost items, I can change in a few months, I could run, 29 inmates and have a lot of costs associated with it.
What's your total budget? Isn't it like 5 million?
Three,
3.25, something
Okay.
like that.
3.1, 3.2.
I was thinking,
So what I'm saying is, yeah, it does look like a large amount for this year, but that can change.
well, you didn't have as many inmates last year because
We ran lower on inmates, we ran lower on some other costs. We ran, for a long time, we ran lower on fuel costs.
Right.
It's stuff can change quickly. And I'd rather know that I can return some money now, that if I run close or unexpected, we had some unexpected plumbing problems this last 12 months, large amounts of problems. So that added to the cost. We're looking at radio communication type stuff. So I'm looking down the road, not necessarily that we're inflating line items.
No,
And-
and that's not what I was trying to say.
I know, and I've looked at numbers, and when I started this process, 1st February, I looked at numbers, I tried to, all right, he had this number in for last year, and I have to see where that's gonna be.
Right.
So.
And I've had this same discussion with Greg
Right.
as well in the past. And so I'm just bringing it up once again because that's my train of thought, that if we aren't always asking for extra money, or we always run into a case where we have this extra money, that can actually translate into a lower levy rate for the county taxpayers countywide. And it's not just your office, it's other offices as well, secondary roads included. So I'm just looking for different ways to lower that levy rate rather than telling everybody, we've got to ask for this extra money and we need to increase the levy rate because of this or this. And then at the end of the year, seeing all the department heads coming in and saying, well, I gave back 100,000, or I gave back 50,000, or I gave back 250,000. You put those together, that could have been a couple of points on that levy rate.
I agree. I don't want to increase the levy rate
I don't either.
That's why I crunch numbers all
I know.
Good.
And, we really looked at that one line item that we had a lot of discussion about. we ended up cutting, what, 20, 30,000, because over time, last 3 years, it had been static and not used. So yeah, no,
Right.
we'll
Right, yeah,
look at
and
it.
we did cut, I think, total of 32
Yeah,
out for the next budget year.
Yeah.
So, and I'm looking at numbers all the time.
Yep.
So.
yeah, we appreciate the data.
Bart, if I could say something, the fact that when you moved Jerry up, when you moved Jerry up, how long did it take you to hire another deputy? That was money that
Right,
essentially wasn't spent.
right. So
If you would have
from
had,
January 1 to April 1.
yeah,
So we replaced the deputy April 1st. So basically, we saved a little bit of money there. I mean,
probably 30,000. Well, not 30, 20-some.
uh,
Fringes.
so I saved a little money there, and you're right.
That's, you can't
When you
predict
have,
that stuff.
what's
You
that?
cannot predict that stuff. Not,
No, I cannot. So,
Anyway, please let your employees know you did your job and you advocated for them, as he
Well,
continually does.
and you're right, and I think of them first. I just want the board to know that when this decision was made 2 weeks ago, the word got out, not only my office, but other offices. And I want the public to know I'm only, I went after the additional 1.5% that the compensation board recommended. And I think they at least deserve that. And with the additional amount, it's way less than what you approved for the employees of the sheriff's office. So, they went through a lot this last 18 months. Over a third of our office had COVID.
Was that because of contracting it in the jail? Or was that because of contracting it outside the jail and then having?
We had a lot of cases of inmates coming in with COVID. We were constantly testing, yes, isolating, and more than likely it probably did. And it spread through, we answered calls, we did everything we had to during that time. We responded to the public.
One of the uses of the American Rescue Plan funds is if you need to adjust space because of a pandemic in the future, that would mitigate transmission. So I don't know in your sheriff meetings at ISAC, or if you'll talk about any of that, if there's any state-of-the-art recommendation for jails.
I'm not sure.
Just, it'd be helpful to know if there's some research or something out there that really addresses that, because that is a legitimate use of those funds, although we want to be able to know if we chose to do anything like that, that would be.
Well, the
Solve
CARES
the
money you
problem.
spoke of, is that completely gone on the
No,
incentive
here's the
care?
deal. ARP is specifically for this type of thing. And the CARES fund, basically we could use for other things. And so once ARP gets settled, there's going to be a lot of strings attached to that. So it would behoove us to use that for things we know that are already going to be specifically for that, which is if there are any incentives for essential workers, that's where the money should come from as ARP. Can it come from CARES? Yes. However, CARES funds we could use for things like the courthouse projects that never seem to happen, and I'm just throwing examples, I'm not, it's just, that has less restrictions connected with it. I guess is the easiest way to say that.
Okay.
But as far as today goes, thank you for advocating for your people,
I think they deserve it.
and we do appreciate what they do.
Okay.
I just know the floodgates we need to minimize right now.
I understand that.
I know
yes.
you do.
And the code section I sent my email,
I know.
it'd have to include the 5 elective.
You did your
offices.
research.
Yes,
Yes, you did.
yes.
So
I
thank
do
you.
think they deserve that 1.5.
Thanks, Bart.
Okay, thank you.
Joe?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
First of all, I think you should commend Bart for his department of not spending all his money that he budgeted, because some departments, they're gonna spend that money someplace. So I think it's run a very efficient department. And as far as some compensation, they're more in danger than public health was, as far as I'm concerned. Because public health, you had to have an appointment. They put on protective equipment to protect themselves. These guys, when they make an arrest, they have to do it on the spur of the moment, traffic accidents and stuff, and they're exposed a lot worse than public health. And my wife worked for public health too at one time. So, I mean, Darren, Susie, you opened a can of worms. You compensated them, and I think you need to do something with everybody else too that comes and asks. And I support Bart 100% on this. I'm sorry, I do. So.
Okay.
Any other
Thanks, Joe.
comments?
Yeah, you'll only comment. It's not, of course they do. Everybody in the county has done a good job. Look at that. Through the election, all the absentee ballot requests she dealt with, I think everybody's done a very good job.
All right, well, thank you.
I think the question has been answered though, and I agree with your comment this morning. I don't support it in terms of dollars. Not that I don't support Bart, but I don't support it in terms of dollars. Bart knows that, we've had that conversation. But I didn't support the public health nurse either. And I think that frankly, I don't think that there was sort of looking for justification for $10,000 bonuses, period. You said 2 weeks ago, you came in and said 5%, not you, but I mean, they came in and said 5% pay increase and go away. And that's probably a poor choice of words. But my point simply is that I agree, that you have to stop this somewhere. It should have been stopped before it ever went to the public health nurse. Susie made the comment, or you did, that they got paid to do a job, not specifically public health, but I mean, everybody here, the department heads and so on and so forth, everybody was getting paid to do a job. That was the job they got paid for. So public health. And as Joe indicated, the sheriff's office didn't have the opportunity to lock the doors. They had to take all comers 24/7. And I just think it's disingenuous to come back now and say, oh, we need to be concerned about taxpayer dollars as far as the CARES Act money goes, which is, as I understand, where the board took the bonuses from the public health nurse out of. Again, not advocating that you move any further. I would make the suggestion that the board revisit and rescind the bonuses.
Any other comments? Okay,
You got a good point.
I have a comment.
okay. Go ahead.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I just, for the good of the order, I would like to say that the Board of Health voted unanimously to compensate the public health staff for the hours above and beyond that we worked. As you indicated, Dee, we do not receive comp time, we do not receive overtime pay, and we have been dealing with this ongoing response since really November of 2019, before it was ever in the public. So I understand our door was locked. I understand appointments needed to be made. However, we were following mitigation practices to ensure our safety, as we only have a department of 4 registered nurses and 2 nursing assistants. If one of us were to have gotten sick with COVID, our response would have looked different for this community. So I appreciate my board support. I appreciate the supervisor support. This is something that we have been discussing since budget time. So with that being said, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, anybody else want to make a comment? Otherwise, we're going to move on. All right, we're going to move on. Discuss and consider reappointing Janine Parker and Gloria Countryman to the comp board.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
At this time, I would also like to suggest that we look at the whole list and sit down and reappoint those that need done, so we can. do
Yeah,
all of this.
Shannon sent us a list about a month or two ago.
Right.
Do you
and
want
there's-
to kind
There's
of
only
coordinate
two
that,
more
Susie?
on that list, and one is from the recorder's office and one is from the county attorney's office. And I've spoken with both of those two offices. Kelly was going to ask if her appointment could be renewed, Melvidal, and then Chauncey was going to ask for their appointee if he wanted to be renewed, and I haven't heard back from Chauncey on that yet.
I
So,
think the preservation, the Historic Preservation Board has some folks that are way overdue.
Why don't you get that updated list from Shannon
Okay,
and,
put that in the agenda next week.
sure. And
Yeah.
and I think, yeah.
That
So he
just,
sent us that, and a lot of these are due by the end of the year, so it's a good time.
right, these particular ones though are due the end of July.
Yeah.
So,
Yep, very good. So yeah, you want to put that on the agenda for next week. Discuss and consider allowance and disallowance of BPTC as recommended by county assessor. Steve, welcome.
Walk down. So the BPTC is the business property tax credit, has to be signed up by July 1st. The allowances are just new ones that people have signed up for. The disallowances, we did not send any letters this year because they were all properties that sold. So I just need. So what happens is I take the applications, I recommend to the board allowance and disallowance, but in the end, you guys approve them. Disapprove.
Catch up with some paperwork here,
Yeah.
Steve. Okay, so there's nothing to sign for this. You need a motion.
I'll need you as the chairperson to sign these new forms as the chairperson.
Okay.
Was all. And you can chop up later if you want to. But what I need is, a motion. Yes.
Okay, so we need to make a motion for that.
so moved.
second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And where is what we signed? Oh, these.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll sign them and bring them up. Thanks, David. Discuss and consider cyber underwriting application for MyCap. Okay, what this is if you remember last December, Darren and I, between us, visited everybody's department. Something new ICAP's doing because of all the cyber hits in counties and municipalities are one of the low-hanging fruit for that industry, unfortunately. So this is something, the timeline's pretty short. They want it done by September 1st. There's an online application, which I have sent to both of you. I asked Scott last week if Abby could help be the recipient of the information, and he said yes, because she's a board chair. Thank you, Abby. So I was wondering, Susie, if you wanted to kind of coordinate this from the county's level. It'll mean talking to a lot of department heads, find out what's going on, maybe PCS or whoever they use. And we may not know all the answers, but we'll get what we can. We do know that at least the county attorney is building, and I think public health is on a different server. So we know that not everything's on the same server, so that's good. That sheet's what I got from PCS like before this. That was from a couple weeks ago, but so
Yeah, I
this
was
is
just
new.
looking at the online cloud backup, starting at $150 per month per physical server. So if you just stated that we have 3 or 4 servers, that's $300, $450, $600 a month
Which would
to
probably be
do
well spent.
cloud-based backup. Yeah,
But could you kind of look at that and make a
Sure,
recommendation
sure.
for us, please? Thank you. Because this kind of goes with the safety committee too, Susie. All right. And so there's nothing really to prove there. There's nothing new on the development agreement. I just put that in here on a placeholder because I hadn't had a chance when the agenda was due to talk to Pat. Make committee reports. I've got several. You guys can go first if you want.
I've just been operating as a committee of one, helping out Dwayne since we hired our new engineer, and have been trying to go through a bunch of the paperwork in the office and determining what's pertinent and what's not. Found a lot of stuff in stacks 2-3 foot high that are from 2013, 14, and 15 that there's no reason to have even hard copies of it left. All the work's been done, and what's valuable to us has already been stored through the DOT's archiving system. So I've been working with that, and I do have to say that Dwayne is going to be a huge asset here to the county. He is a valuable upgrade from what we had before. And I think that we're going to be money well spent with Dwayne as our county engineer for quite a while. I don't see Dwayne wanting to go anywhere after getting here. And so we're really pleased, and we're really very lucky to have gotten a man like this to come to our door and say he wanted this job.
And I want to thank Darren for going out and helping him dig out the files, because I know that was a huge help to doing this. So thanks, Darren.
Yeah.
Where'd you build your resume?
Sounds like you
Well,
were.
I've only been an engineering technician for 40 years.
Kind of like you were in your element out there. So that's good. Susie, you have anything?
No, I do not.
All right. So I had a couple meetings at Henry County. One was a week and a half ago on the SEAL, the Mental Health Governance Board. The Finance Committee coordinated a meeting with the Henry County Supervisors, and then 5 different county of us governance board members were there. We met with one representative and a senator, Jeff Reichman and Joe Mitchell, about the mental health bill that was passed, because there's a huge concern. The region's already lost $900,000 in funding with that bill as signed this year. So basically they were educating the senator and representative about that so that they can go find more information and advocate for rural Iowa, because we really do need the services down here. And then also the sporadic, and again, I've done those 5 years, and every year the goalposts change in mental health. You know, one year they say you can have a 20% carryover. Next year it's 40. Next year it's going to be 5. So it's kind of like, you know, and so we really need to get things consistent. And there's some concern that was voiced at that meeting by some of the governance board members about just the funding streams in the future and centralizing that'll take away from local control on this issue. So that's kind of the gist of it. I think it was a good awareness for them to hear, so they can do some research before they go back to the legislature and see what happens. And then while I was there, they said, oh, if you want to come back next Tuesday, we're meeting with 3 broadband providers. And I thought, well, I want to go learn what I can about that. So I went last Tuesday since we didn't have a meeting. And they had 3 broadband providers there. And they were talking about in 2 weeks, I think, well, 28th, there's some applications due for all that state funding that was passed. And so some of them were working on that. And again, they're all competitors, so they wouldn't give out a lot of details, which was understandable. But the point was, I think we need to educate ourselves as a board about broadband and the funds that are becoming available, because it's clear that this is being equated to the 1930s when the electricity was gone through the country, because it helps economic development. People can work from anywhere, so we can attract people who want to live here and that can work remotely. I've heard various ballpark costs. It depends how much you get into, whether it's fiber. And I asked because everybody needed this clarification. Yes, it's broadband, even if it is from a tower, but the most consistent way is obviously fiber. So usually those towers need line of sight, and with all the technology available, trees, it will not go through trees. And those of us that have trees know that. But it's just interesting, they said it'll go through fog, all sorts of inclement weather, but the towers will not go through trees. So there's an actual new map, and it has Jefferson counties. I pulled it up at home. I wasn't able to get it to print, but it's OCIOS, and it was just updated July 1st, and it shows in Jefferson County where we're void of broadband coverage.
Mhm.
So you can see there's been a couple towers put out, east and south of town a little, and then west half of the county is pretty good for broadband coverage because it's flat for the most part. But you get northeast and south, and it's variable. I don't know, what do you have, Randy? Do you have, well, you're right by that tower though. Yeah, so you wouldn't have any problem. So, so basically, it was just interesting. The 4 providers that were at that meeting was Windstream, a company out of Danville that has done a public project down there, like a 70-mile, you may be familiar. They did West Burlington and Burlington too. And so, and then FarmTel, which does, I know some people in Northeast Jefferson County from Wayland. So it was just interesting to learn about that. Yeah. Yeah, they do. I've talked with one of the companies informally, but I think we need to educate ourselves. And what I wanted, the reason we brought this up is, is now a good time? Should we do a similar thing like they did and invite, I know there's 2 companies in town, and if there's any others that you know that might want to come, and just have a Q&A with them and see what we can learn. We can wait, till this fall or whenever. I mean, obviously we're not going to be applying for any of this funding this round, but I think we know there'll be funding coming down the pike in the
Right.
future, so we need to be ready.
There doesn't seem to be a huge urgency right at this point in time. We've got so many other things on our plate that we do need to take care of first, not the least of which is trying to make this healthcare coverage happen in whatever form that we're going to do.
Yep.
Because we know right now that we can't sustain another year of what we had with increases this past year, and how our system is currently working. There's too many problems with it. So I think that's going to take a lot of our time coming up over the next month, 2 months, for the board to look at that and really truly come up with something that can work. So maybe if we do have a sit-down Q&A and try to learn a little more or something like that, we can put it
Wait
back.
later.
Yeah,
That's
wait
fine.
until a little bit later.
That's why I wanted to ask. Okay. Yeah. And that's, I guess, the highlights. Okay.
I have a question about mental health.
Yeah.
So what changes are coming with the state? We're
From-
currently in an 8-county region. We were placed in that a few years ago.
Right.
And we are taxed at a certain rate to cover mental health. So that fund each year does it push 800,000?
Correct.
Mhm.
That's what it
So
was
what-
this year.
What's gonna happen?
Our levy rate's supposed to go down this
There-
next year.
The state's still gonna collect that
And the
money then?
state's gonna take it over and see, in their projection, they're gonna give our region $900,000 less over those 8 counties.
So
Our
we're gonna
levy
pay
will go-
less as taxpayers.
Yes, our levies will be going down.
Okay.
Nobody knows, the state hasn't been very clear on where that other money's coming from, and I don't know, do you have any more information? I know. That's just it.
Right, and the only thing she said was the read that article in the paper that you were
Mhm.
referencing. And I have a couple questions regarding what are currently, this will reflect on anybody person, but I just have questions about what are currently county employees in the region and how that would be affected when the state took over 100%. Because I wouldn't think I would want. But I think she said 20%. And I read in the article, $900,000 that you were talking about. But we may need to do a version.
Yep. And those are some very good programs that have done a good job of preventing.
Well, out of 8 counties, how much is going into the region each year?
To the region.
Total.
Oh, I want to say over 5 million, but I'm pulling a number out of my, we're 800,000, we're a medium-sized county, so extrapolate that times 8. It's a chunk of money.
Yeah.
The next thing-
Are we gonna remain in a region then?
Yeah, this has
Okay.
nothing to do with
But I
region.
think the services would be better at a local level than what we're getting now,
So
to be honest, and for over $5 million.
what do you need that you haven't gotten?
I'm not sure that we're getting any help with mental health. I sat in a meeting, I think you were there, and I explained, I thought we were all on the same page, and I'll stress this again, everything falls back to law enforcement. The last contact they had with law enforcement.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be on page with the hospital, the mental health providers, everybody, but it all comes back to law enforcement when something happens. And I don't think we're getting that assistance.
Have you been able to talk with Sandy about that?
No,
I would
other
suggest doing that.
than that meeting we had.
Yeah, I would suggest doing that.
So
If you want to
I
make them,
yeah, I would like to know how much money is being spent here in this county.
Ask Sandy.
Okay. Because there's, at times we need help.
Mhm.
And we do have somebody coming in the jail, and they can only get services once they're outside the jail. They can meet with somebody, but they can't get services until they're released from jail.
Yeah.
Right.
Want the public to understand that. So we do make it available for someone to come in, and we've just recently they've added an iPad for like telehealth
Right.
type services, but that's minimal to $5 million.
The next meeting is Wednesday afternoon, if you want to go with me, for the
Okay.
governance board at 1:30 in Mount Pleasant Emergency Management Center.
That's a lot of money, and this county itself provides a lot of money.
Yep.
Mhm.
Good questions, Bart.
I agree.
It doesn't delineate to each county, it's like to provider. So here, the region contracts with Optimum, to provide services. And it's in various forms. You know, they do, as you're well aware, jail diversion, the 24/7 assessment at the hospital. They have some appointments open at there for people in crisis. So,
Which I think all of us should be on the same page. And like, I'll go back to this, when something happens, it's coming back on law enforcement.
Right.
It always
If you're the
does.
first one to
When
It always
something
does.
happens, when they either intentionally injure themselves or someone else, it's all gonna come back to us, even though we've taken the steps to cover that with health, mental health, everything we can do. But then it's finger pointing time when something happens. So I think it's good that we try to be on the same page, but you got to back us when something happens.
Yep. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll get you and Sandy connected and so you can. Let's see, public comments. Do we have any public comments?
I just wondered how we're progressing on this spec building. Well, I just was wondering if we had any bites, if we were getting close to the time where we're all gonna have to start making payments on it.
I'm just gonna ask the board if that's something that's on the agenda and want to discuss.
It's not
I don't
on
know
the-
formalities, so.
Yeah,
I'll ask with formalities.
typically public comments, we just listen and don't respond, is how that's supposed to work.
I'd be more than happy to follow up with you after, just for formalities. And then if the board wants to put it on there, I'm more than happy.
It was just that.
If you wanna-
Easier because you were here and I knew you both were involved in it.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys connect after the meeting?
Optimistic. I know that's fair enough, but.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
That'd be a good topic to put on sometime. Let me know when it's ready to go on. Either one of them. Okay, motion, any other public comments?
I just want to thank the board. I appreciate the opportunity to want you.
Just allow claims and approve reports.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Nuisance properties, any updates?
I have no updates on that at this time.
Okay, I had put discuss spotlight on here just so we can plan for the rest of the year because we got off schedule. So get your calendars out. Who wants to do this week, which will be, or month, which will be the 20th. I can't.
I did the last one.
Can you do this week, month, the 20th?
Yes.
Susie?
Did you say yes, you would do it?
I said I could, but I wasn't looking at her, looking at you and asking that. There you go.
Good.
All right.
All right.
So we got Susie.
So we may as well do August and September as well.
And I'll do September 21st. If Dee's gonna do the August,
Yeah, I'll plan on it unless we decide to do something, but I think we'll be here.
What date in August?
It's the 17th. I'll take that one.
right, it's always the third Tuesday. So I'll take the 21st of September.
We typically plan this when we do at the beginning of the year, but we always get off schedule because life happens. Okay, so you're September, Darren?
Yep.
All right. So that takes us,
To October.
Susie, you want to do October?
Oh, sure. What date? Unless I make it
1, 2, 3, 21st?
Sure.
No, wait, it's not. I was looking at September, October 19th.
October 19th.
Sure.
November 1, 2, 3, 16th. That'll be D.
And December 21st would be me.
All right, thank you. We got it. subject to change, of course, but at least we have a plan. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.